Welcome back to Hold My Helmet. Once again, your host, Will Reichling. Week 10 of the NFL season in the books, so we're going to get into that right now. We're going to get into Eagles-Packers. We'll hit on some Giants-Bears, Brian Daboll getting fired, react to that. Talk a little bit about J.J. McCarthy and his struggles last week. Dan Campbell taking over play caller duties, so that was pretty important. Bills getting embarrassed by the Dolphins, and maybe we'll hit on the Denver Broncos at the end if I have some time. So like, subscribe, and share. Let's go right into it. Eagles-Packers, Monday Night Football. What a shit show. What a shit show that game was. 10-7, Eagles win. When you go into that, you place your bets on FanDuel, DraftKings. You don't think it's going to be a 10-7 game when it's Eagles and Packers with all the talent on offense on both of those teams. But that's what it was. And the Packers only scoring 7 points. I've heard a lot of chirps from Packers fans over the last couple weeks about potentially firing Matt LaFleur. Are you out of your goddamn mind? You really want to fire Matt LaFleur? Yes, they've struggled in the playoffs at times, and yes, sometimes his philosophy and his play calling on offense is a little questionable at times, definitely a little questionable. But he's proven that he can win games with multiple quarterbacks on this team. Aaron Rodgers won back-to-back MVPs with Matt LaFleur when everyone thought that Aaron Rodgers was on the decline. Elevates Jordan Love to be a top 10 to 12 quarterback. We could say what we want, nitpick him a little bit. Maybe he's more like 12 than 7, but he's in that top 12 range, and he is top 10 talent for sure, and Matt LaFleur has harnessed that a little bit. Jordan Love's inconsistent week to week, but Matt LaFleur, for the most part, has been successful with Jordan Love. He won multiple games with Malik Willis, man. What are we talking about? This guy won multiple games with Malik Willis as his quarterback. Dan Campbell hasn't made a Super Bowl either. Last year had the embarrassing loss to the Commanders in the playoffs. Are the Lions moving on from him? Kevin O'Connell is still yet to win a playoff game. And for some reason, people talk about him like he's some genius. The guy has not won a playoff game yet. Mike Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game in 10 years. Yes, he won a Super Bowl. Yes, he had success back in the day with Big Ben, but has not won a playoff game in 10 years. Somehow still continues to have a job. Not even saying Mike Tomlin's bad, but I'm just trying to set the standard here for Matt LaFleur. I know he struggled. I know last year you had a disappointing loss in the playoffs to the Eagles. I know this year you're very up and down. You have Super Bowl hopes, but who are you going to get that is a better head coach than Matt LaFleur? John Gruden? I'd rather take my chances with LaFleur at that point. Mike McCarthy? They're not bringing him back. And regardless, I would take my chances with LaFleur over McCarthy. So, Green Bay, I don't even know. I guess one of the top college guys. Are you really going to bring in an unproven guy that's never coached in the NFL before for a proven commodity in Matt LaFleur that gets you to the playoffs every year and wins playoff games? Beat the crap out of Dallas 2 seasons ago. People forget about that. Beat the shit out of Dallas. Then went toe-to-toe with the Niners and almost won that game too. So I think we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves here, Packers fans, because everyone, and it applies to the New York Giants too. And we'll get into that a little bit later. My friend, they fired the head coach, Brian Daboll. And I'm like, who do you want to replace him? Like, who do you want now? And he's like, who cares? He just had to go. And that's a dumb way of thinking of things. And I know the Packers are smarter than that. They're not sitting there thinking, okay, I don't care who we get now. Let's just get rid of this guy. That is a very dumb thing to do. You have a guy that you won playoff games with. He's had quarterbacks that have won MVP under him. He's had quarterbacks that were projects that he's turned into a top 12 quarterback. He's had quarterbacks that were on the street, that Malik Willis, that he's won games with. So I'm going to be honest with you. If you guys fire Matt LaFleur, he's going to get a head coaching job in 2 seconds, probably 0.2 seconds. So are you really going to move on from a guy that other teams would view as their top candidate by far? It's kind of really stupid. Matt LaFleur is not the problem. I'll tell you the real problem. The real problem is that this team does not have a number 1 wide receiver. And I've been saying it since last year. I'm going to say it again. They have a bunch of good receivers, I understand. But they don't have a game changer that's going to completely take over a game that Jordan Love could just throw the ball up to, 50-50 ball, and he's going to come down with it. Tucker Kraft was turning into that elite player out for the season now. So now you're back at square one pretty much. Sometimes we just have to chill out. Stop living week to week. People just want to fire coaches all the time. Like, oh, it's the coach's fault. Fire him. What about the players on the team? At some point, the players have to produce. Okay? The coach can only go so far. On to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, after winning the Super Bowl last year, my thought process was, and I've been very critical of Jalen Hurts, my thought process was, okay, you win the Super Bowl, You finally get that success. You win Super Bowl MVP. What are you going to do now? Are you going to regress? Are you going to come back to the mean? Teams are going to be gunning for you even more now. You're the defending champs. People are trying to take down your throne. So Jalen Hurts, you have a lot of pressure on you to go out there in 2025 and produce again. So what are you going to do? And I think he's been excellent this season. I know he's had some down games, some down halves, but I actually think he's been excellent. Even in this Green Bay game, I thought he played really strong. I know the offense struggled, but that was a big-time throw to Devontae Smith for the touchdown. And he makes plays like that in these big games all the time. At some point, we have to not look at the stats of Jalen Hurts and just look at the end result of winning the game, because this guy doesn't really fall into the stats category. It's kind of, you have to judge him in a different way. He doesn't put up these gaudy numbers, but sometimes he does, but most of the times he doesn't put up these gaudy numbers. Usually he has under 200 passing yards, but you have to watch him in these games. He's just very controlled. He knows when to take his deep shots. He just has become a very smart quarterback in this league. When you watch those games, even that game against Green Bay, they put up 10 points, right? You look at that, the box score, you look at his numbers in the box score, you look at the score, and you're like, oh, the Eagles offense did not have a great game. And that's true. But when Jalen Hurts had to make big plays, he made a big-time throw to Devontae Smith in the end zone for the touchdown. Big run on third down for the first down. Like, he just knows what he has to do to get his team over the top. It's just very smart quarterback play, and that only happens after a certain amount of experience in the league. And I think he's really starting to develop that. So Brian Daboll, goodbye, I guess. I mean, that was real. I would have at least kept him until the season was over. Jackson Dart likes him. You don't really want to mess with that too much. And the Giants aren't really the type of franchise to fire a coach midseason. I know it's happened before in the past with them, but it's really uncommon for them. So that's how bad it got. It got pretty bad, obviously. But past is the past, I would have kept him because Dart, he brings in Dart. You don't want to keep moving the carousel with your quarterback. You want to keep him consistent with his play caller. But Kafka calls the plays anyway, technically, so now he's the head coach. So the past is the past. I would have probably kept him, but I totally understand moving on from him. Probably wouldn't have done it mid-season, but whatever. Past is the past. Let's move on to potential candidates. You got Mike McCarthy, who I think would be the number one candidate for this job. He's won 12 games 3 years in a row with Dak Prescott. Dak was runner-up MVP with McCarthy. Won a Super Bowl with Rodgers. Obviously, we all know about that. But I actually thought he was very successful in Dallas and took a lot of heat, unnecessary heat, because when you go 12-5, 12-5, 12-5 3 seasons in a row, yeah, they disappointed in the playoffs. It kind of comes back to Matt LaFleur. A lot of coaches struggle in the playoffs. It's not, and I know head coach is based on what have you done for me lately, but McCarthy's a solid head coach. He's shown that he can run an offense. He's shown that he can coach a quarterback, and he's shown that he can get the best out of the quarterback. Dak Prescott says it all. I know Dak Prescott's lighting it up right now, but he was runner-up MVP with McCarthy, and he won 12 games 3 years in a row. So that's my number one candidate for the Giants. Number two, Mike Tomlin. I went into it earlier. He hasn't won a playoff game in 10 years, but the Steelers just continue to keep him around. So I'm not really optimistic about this because, I just feel like the Steelers are just never moving on from him until he calls it quits himself. So Mike Tomlin would be a good one, though. Professional head coach. He'll toughen up that locker room. He'll get the players to buy in. I prefer an offensive guy with my rookie quarterback, though. So that's why I would put McCarthy over Tomlin. But I just don't think Tomlin's realistic. I think the Steelers keep him no matter how this season plays out. I think he's just locked in there. John Gruden, that's an exciting one. Gruden talked to Dart before the draft. That whole video where he was just claps and they call it purple. So it was kind of funny. So I guess they got some kind of relationship there. But Gruden, I don't know. He's getting older. He's a little outdated. Do you really want to bring in a guy that hasn't coached in a while? And last time he coached, it got weird with the emails and they had to let him go. I don't know. It just feels a little weird to me. So Gruden would probably be number 3 for me, but it's that feels like a far stretch. I mean, we haven't talked about Bill Belichick, who has ties to the organization, was probably the best defensive coordinator in their history, invented the 4-3 defense. We know all about that, but I don't know. I think Belichick's another one a little outdated. The Giants really want to go in the defensive direction. So Mike McCarthy 1, Tomlin 2, probably Gruden 3, and Belichick 4. And you got some of the young OCs like Kubiak, but to me, you got to bring in a guy that's been a head coach in the league before. You can't bring in a rookie guy to coach this young quarterback. You need someone that knows how to coach quarterback. And that's why I think Mike McCarthy is the perfect candidate here. I think Mike McCarthy should be calling the Giants right now about this job saying, I'm interested, because Jackson Dart looks like a competitive quarterback and looks like he could be a top 15 quarterback in this league. And we know McCarthy can take a number 15 guy and make him look like number 5, like Dak Prescott he did a few years ago. So if I'm the Giants, Mike McCarthy is an obvious candidate. And Tomlin's more of a dream because we all know the Steelers, they just will never let this guy fucking go. So if you're the Giants, Giants fans, the last couple weeks have been tough. Let's be honest, though, for that Bears game, like, would they really have lost if Dart came out? I feel like they probably would have won that game. Your defense just sucks, though. You need to draft well. Do you really trust Joe Shane, though? Now you have Joe Shane without Brian Daboll. What if they bring in the coach and he doesn't like the GM? It's a little messy now. That's why you want to keep the quarterback and head coach consistent. And Mara usually isn't the type of guy to fire someone mid-season like that. Like, it's just, he's getting impatient. He has health problems. He wants to see this team win, so I get it. But if you're the Giants, those are a couple of options for the offseason, for sure. Chicago Bears. I've made the mistake of living too much in the moment. I've been too week to week with the Chicago Bears. I've been too week to week with Caleb Williams. He'll have a great week. I get all up high and mighty. This guy is the greatest thing since sliced bread. He has a bad week. I'm like, what's going on? So I'm going to calm down and let the season play out. I'm going to let the season marinate because Caleb Williams shown growth in this season, and I think I'm just getting too ahead of myself when he has a good game and a bad game. This is his first year with Ben Johnson, essentially like a rookie season, and he's showing promise. You know, I kind of shitted on him because his only great games have been against bad defenses, Bengals, Cowboys, Giants. You play the schedule in front of you, and last week I was saying, oh, look at his best numbers. Bengals, Cowboys, 2 worst defenses in the league. I kind of want to see that again against the Giants right now. And if Dart didn't come out, they probably would have still lost that game. But he had a really strong week. And again, another fourth quarter where he was just lights out. So you have to give him respect. And I'm getting too up. I'm getting too down. I'm getting into all over the place because I have high expectations for a number 1 overall pick. So I've been a little too hard on him, but I've also been too high on him too when he's played well. I have been one of J.J. McCarthy's biggest critics, but I'm going to push back on the negativity a little bit. They just beat the Lions a week ago, and he played well in that game, played pretty well. This is essentially his rookie season. He had no snaps last year in his rookie season, and he's really young. He's a really young prospect. For the Vikings, you might need to take a small step back this season to take a bigger leap next season. This is going to be some growing pains for J.J. McCarthy, and I get it because you have a team that could win now, but this is this is what you signed up for when you let go of Darnold and you decided to roll with J.J. McCarthy. You were going to have some growing pains. He wasn't going to come in and throw 30 touchdowns. This is what it was going to look like, a good week, a bad week. Same with Caleb. So these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks, we just all need to kind of calm down on. We'll reevaluate when the season's over. But, like, I think, again, J.J. McCarthy, we're getting too week to week with this, you know? It's like he has a good week. Oh, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Has a bad week. Why is this guy even in the league? So I'm falling. It's me, you know? I'm the one doing that. But it's not just me. It's other people, too. But I need to calm down with that because it was kind of funny, though. They had a ton of false starts. And one time, he went to go snap the ball, was under center. And then he stands up and makes a call at the line of scrimmage, you know, calling out his audibles. And it almost sounded like he was doing his cadence. So when he got up and went to make his calls at the line of scrimmage, the line thought he was doing his cadence and they jumped. So it was kind of funny. They're not really used to it. They had Carson Wentz for half the season, now JJ. So those cadence things matter. It was a little bit dysfunctional. And again, Kevin O'Connell hasn't won a playoff game, you know, has struggled now. And it's like we're so quick to move on from Matt LaFleur, and Kevin O'Connell just keeps getting a pass. So if I'm J.J. McCarthy, let's settle in. You still have the whole season left. The Vikings might not make the playoffs, and that's okay. That's okay. If you see growth from J.J. at the end of the year, but you go 7-10, 8-9, I'm feeling good about that. Whereas if you go 10-7 and you're winning in spite of him and he's throwing picks all over the place, I'd rather see some growth this year. I know Justin Jefferson is frustrated. 100%. It's frustrating when you don't have a quarterback that can get you the ball, but this is the potential to grow into something bigger. So let him get his growing pains out. It was a tough loss, but he's going to have tough losses this season. It's going to happen. Same with Caleb. He's going to have another bad game too. So these young second-year quarterbacks, we all got to calm down on. You know, we get too high one week, too low. And we do that with every game, with every team, every week. You know, it's kind of like week 1, just to be random here. Week 1, I think Geno threw from like 400 yards in the Raiders, and we all thought the Raiders were back. Now they suck. So we gotta like let things marinate sometimes. And J.J. McCarthy, I'm not going to rip him this time because I feel like everyone's just so quick to shit on the kid. And I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he played well in that Lions game. They beat him. They showed that when everything's clicking, they could be a competitive team with J.J. McCarthy. So, and I've seen traits, even in that loss to the Ravens, I see traits that I like. When he stands in the pocket, he looks big. He moves well. He's got a strong arm. He's confident with some of his throws. So I kind of like what I see. Whereas Michael Penix, like balls are sailing left and right. I had a video a couple weeks ago where I said, you could tell that Michael Penix is a better player than J.J. McCarthy. And that's why you can't live 2 week to week, because I am fucking crazy for saying that. Because Michael Penix looks like he's playing with no confidence. And I don't see any traits or any skills with him. Whereas J.J. McCarthy, not necessarily playing well, but I see the traits and the skills with him. So that's why we got to stop living week to week. You know, the Falcons beat the Vikings head to head. Then the Falcons beat the Bills. And you get so high about the Falcons and so low on the Vikings. A couple weeks later, shit changes. So sometimes we just got to let things marinate, especially with these second-year quarterbacks that are going through growing pains. A guy like J.J. McCarthy, who missed his entire first season. A guy like Caleb Williams, who has a new head coach this season. A guy like Michael Penix, who only had 3 starts last season. So we're impatient. I get it. It's a $1 billion industry. Every team wants to win now. It's not like they have these 7-on-7 camps when these kids are young. So like quarterbacks are coming into league more polished. I understand, but I think we got to sit and chill on some of these second-year quarterbacks. Dan Campbell takes over play calling. This man can do it all. Now, I know he called a little bit of plays in 2021 in this first season, and I kind of want to relate this to a real-life situation. Have you guys ever worked a job where there's a deadline or a big customer's coming in or you have a big presentation coming out? Pretty much there's a big action item that needs to get done, and it's up to you and a couple other individuals to get this done. And there's that one guy in the group, that one guy, maybe a couple guys, and maybe this is you, I don't know, that guy in the group that you just don't trust to get it done. And it gets to the point where, you know, you're getting into this project, and next thing you know, you have only 1 day left to get this project done. All of your action items are done, all of that guy's and then this one guy has nothing done. We've all been there. And then you get to the point where you're like, fuck it, I'm doing it myself. And that's what Dan Campbell got to. I actually think this is a great thing. This is an excellent thing for the Detroit Lions. This is an excellent thing for Dan Campbell. Why? Because if Dan Campbell, and again, I know he called plays in 2021 a little bit. I know he has some experience with it. But if he could become a solid play caller, they won't have to keep recycling coordinators year after year when they get a good coordinator and then they go and get a head coaching job. He could just be the coordinator. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And maybe he doesn't want to be the coordinator, but I actually think this is the best thing for the Lions, for him to learn how to call plays, and then he could just do it. You don't have to train another guy. You don't have to watch another guy go and be a head coach. You could just have him do it. And that's why I was worried when they lost Ben Johnson. I'm like, okay, you're going to keep recycling coordinators now. If he could just learn to call the plays, that solves that problem. Buffalo Bills getting just straight up embarrassed. And I know it's a divisional game. I know it's the Miami Dolphins divisional game. Sometimes it gets weird in Miami. The Patriots used to lose all the time in Miami with Tom Brady. But I think the Bills beating the Chiefs a couple weeks ago hurt them more than helped them, because they won that game, they worked the Chiefs, and then they go, oh, we're good. We don't need a number 1 wide receiver. We don't need a number 1 receiver. We're good. Our offense is set. And it comes to find out now you play the Dolphins, who don't even really have, I mean, they have a solid defense, but they're not rolling out fucking Jalen Ramsey in his prime anymore. 100%, this team needs a game changer at wide receiver. It's just inevitable. Like, Josh Allen can't do everything. And Joe Brady, okay, when the Bills fired Ken Dorsey and they hired Joe Brady, everyone was like, the Bills need to run the ball more. Josh Allen's doing too much. The Bills just need to run the ball more. He's throwing the ball too much. They need to develop a running game. So all Joe Brady did was go, okay, hey, James Cook, 42 dive. Hey, James Cook, 46 power. Hey, James Cook, 45 counter. All he did was just call more run plays. Like, I don't think he did anything special, Joe Brady, but then people wanted to anoint him like he was the next greatest thing and become a head coach. Like, I thought he was okay. Like, I didn't think he was anything special. So, don't be surprised if Joe Brady loses that gig in the offseason for Brian Daboll, who had the most success with Josh Allen out of all the coordinators that Josh Allen's had. So, Don't be surprised. And I think Brian Daboll and Sean McDermott had some falling out a little bit. Hey, maybe McDermott gets fired and Daboll becomes the head coach. I don't know if that's going to happen, but Brian Daboll will be the offensive coordinator of this team in 2026. Whether it's as the head coach or just the coordinator, it's going to be Brian Daboll. He's out there. He's on the open market. I'm sure Josh Allen's already talking to McDermott about it right now because I don't think Joe Brady is that good. I really don't. I never thought he was. I just remember when he took over the play calling duties and they just ran the ball more and it was just simple plays and everyone wanted to act like he was the greatest coordinator since sliced bread. Like I was like, yeah, I'm going to zag on that. I mean, he's done an okay job, but like he's not doing anything special. So I think he's a little overrated. I got to be honest there. I think Joe Brady's a little bit of an overrated offensive coordinator. And it's not necessarily his fault. Like I said, they need a number one receiver, but like it's not like he's doing anything. Like it's not like he's scheming guys open or anything. I mean, he's just these are simple plays he's calling. I don't think he's doing anything different than Ken Dorsey did, to be honest, other than call more runs than pass. But it's not like he's Ben Johnson, like tricking guys out. I just think he's a little overrated. So don't be surprised. Well, not even don't be surprised. Expect Brian Daboll to be the offensive coordinator of the Bills in 2026. And the Denver Broncos, man. I was very, very high on the Broncos coming into the season. I thought they were going to take a big step forward. Looks like they have still. I mean, they're 8-2, best defense in the league, maybe the second best defense in the league. But Bo Nix, man, Bo Nix. I was high on him after last season. He had a huge rookie year, and now he's regressed. He's regressed. We got to be honest about it. When you talk about a player and you're like, oh, he hasn't been great, but his fourth quarter numbers, man, they've been special. What about the first three quarters? Like, we do this all the time. It reminds me of Tim Tebow. But listen, Bo Nix is eons better than Tim Tebow as a quarterback. But when you start talking about, oh, yeah, look at Bo Nix's fourth quarter numbers, it's like, what about the first three quarters when he was getting blown out? At some point, you need to have a complete game. And I know against the Raiders, he didn't even have a good fourth quarter. But, like, when you start talking about quarterbacks about, like, oh, look at the fourth quarter, which is the most important quarter. I will admit that. It's the most important quarter, especially when you're trailing and teams know you have to throw. He's made plays, but, like, he's putting them in those situations by playing like shit the first three quarters. So, like, you can't always do that. Like, oh, look at this one quarter, this one situation in this one quarter, and look how good he's been. What about every other scenario throughout the season in the other three quarters? Like, at some point, and now I think it's finally starting to pile up on itself. Like, at some point, he needs to have a complete game. And he had, I think, one or two really good games from start to finish. But, like, he's regressed. We got to be honest. He's regressed. They have too much talent on this offense for him to regress like this. And I think Sean Payton plays a little bit of a part in this, calling too many deep passes down the field. He's just not accurate on deep balls. And I think he has a better arm than people like thought, but he hasn't been accurate on deep balls. He just hasn't. He hasn't been a good player. And Sean Payton, like, I think at Oregon, I think his strength is throwing short passes within 5 yards on the sideline. I think that's his strength, and they're getting away from that now. I know he wants to develop Bo Nix into a better player, but like they're taking too many shots down the field. I think they need to get back to that quick pass offense that Bo Nix thrives in. He's an accurate player 10 yards in. He's probably one of the most accurate players in the league 10 yards in. Once you start going 15, 20 yards, he's going to get a little shaky. So, I mean, this guy could still, again, second-year guy. Maybe I'm living too week to week, but this has been multiple weeks in a row. This is not just up and down, up and down. This is like multiple weeks in a row where this guy's got to come from behind and pull some magic in the fourth quarter. Like, that's not going to keep happening. It just won't. The numbers, like the odds, just don't favor that. So at some point, you need to put together a complete game. We can talk all we want about your fourth quarter numbers, but like at some point, like in the playoffs, like if you're down 25-0, you're not coming back in that game. Like, it's just different when you're playing the Giants. And I know you came back against the Eagles, and that was a great game. But like, you're putting them in those situations by playing like shit the first three quarters. Like, it's kind of yin and yang. Like, you have a great fourth quarter, yeah, that's great. But you fucking put us in that position with your terrible throws the first three quarters. So like, eventually, we have to open our eyes to that. And I remember, I love John Middlecoff, 3 and Out. Shout out John. I was watching one of his mailbags where like he answers questions of fans on the Instagram and whatever. And one guy a couple weeks ago tried to make a case for Bo Nix to be the MVP of the league. I understand the numbers are good because of all his good fourth quarters, but like if you watch football and you watch NFL games and you've watched the Broncos, never in your right mind do you watch a Broncos game and think Bo Nix is the MVP of the league. No, that's only a Broncos fan that's like delusional would think that. Like, you could put, that's why sometimes numbers are just like stupid. Like, I've seen Russell Wilson on the Broncos put together a good statistical season and look like shit. You know, I've seen it multiple times. I've seen guys not have great numbers and put together great seasons. Look at Jalen Hurts. I would take Jalen Hurts over Bo Nix. I bet you put their numbers next to each other, they're very similar, or Bo Nix might have slightly better numbers, actually. But I would take Jalen Hurts all day. So, like, sometimes we have to see context within those numbers. Oh, look at Bo Nix's fourth quarter numbers. You realize his numbers are that great because he's been getting blown out the first 3 quarters, right? So he's playing catch up. So he's passing every down. So, like, and yeah, he's coming back and they're winning these games, but I feel like the tide's about to turn. I feel like something's about to happen and this team's going to start falling apart because this is not sustainable. It just isn't. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you. See you next week. Take care.